Oliver Grant hadn't stepped into the laundry floor of his own hotel in 3 years. To him, it was only a hot basement buried beneath the marble of the grand lobby, a place where washer drums spun without pause, bleach clung to the walls, and white sheets vanished from the sight of VIP guests before they ever realized someone had stayed awake all night to make them clean. But that morning, when a guest on the penthouse level complained that fresh sheets hadn't arrived on time, Oliver went down himself. The service elevator doors opened. The sound of dryers, rushing water, and chemicals hit him in the face. In the center of the room, Amara Brooks stood before a cold steel table, both hands gripping an unwashed white sheet. Martin Hale, the hotel's operations manager, stepped forward at once and pointed at her. "She is holding it on purpose," he said, delaying the entire process. "The guest is waiting upstairs." Oliver looked at the sheet, then at the laundry woman in front of him. He didn't ask another question. In front of more than a dozen silent employees, he told her,
Get out!
coldly, that she was fired.
I understand.
Amara didn't cry. She didn't beg. She only lifted one corner of the sheet, slowly enough for everyone to see the tiny brown-red dot near the hem, no larger than the head of a pin. Oliver stopped. "You can fire me," she said quietly. "But if this sheet disappears, you will lose your last chance to know what happened to your wife." No one on the laundry floor dared to breathe, because on the edge of that sheet was the room code for the presidential suite, the room that had been sealed since the night Oliver Grant's wife disappeared 3 years earlier. For a few seconds, the machines were the only things still moving. A dryer knocked in the corner. Steam crawled along the ceiling pipes. Oliver's face changed, but only for an instant. The name of his wife had crossed the room faster than any accusation could. Evelyn Grant wasn't spoken of on the laundry floor, not in the lobby, not in board meetings. Oliver had built an entire silence around her.
I do.
Now this woman from the basement had broken it in front of everyone. Martin recovered first. "Mr. Grant, I apologize," he said. "She is upset because of the termination. I will have security remove her, and the sheet will be processed immediately." He reached for the linen. Amara pulled it back. Martin's smile thinned. "That is hotel property. So was the room it came from," Amara said. "And that room was supposed to be sealed." Oliver took one step closer.
You knew exactly what
His
this
polished
meant.
shoes looked almost obscene against the wet concrete floor. "What did
Don't
you
pretend
say?"
you didn't.
Amara kept her eyes on him. "The laundry tag has been cut. Half the code is missing, but the remaining characters are still enough." She turned the hem toward him.
Look at
The
the
strip
tag.
of heat-resistant
It's
plastic had been stitched into the
right
corner.
into the corner.
Most guests never saw
Interesting, it
those
would survive
tags.
the washer.
They were made to survive boiling water, bleach, and industrial heat, carrying room codes and linen batches through a system no guest ever imagined. This one had been sliced diagonally, as if someone had tried to erase its identity in a hurry. Only 3 characters remained. PHS, Presidential Honeymoon Suite. Oliver's jaw tightened. Martin gave a soft laugh. "That code is old. Linens are rotated, repurposed, mislabeled. It happens. She doesn't understand the scale of a hotel like this." Amara turned her head slightly. "I understand fabric that has been washed too late. I understand blood that has been treated with the wrong chemical. And I understand when someone cuts a tag because they are afraid the cloth remembers more than they do." A young attendant near the folding shelves lowered her eyes. Oliver noticed all of it, and that angered him more. He didn't want witnesses. He didn't want whispers. He didn't want Evelyn's name traveling upward through service elevators before noon. "Enough," he said. "No one touches that sheet until I say so." Martin nodded too quickly. "Of course. I will lock it in the security room." "No," Amara said. Every head turned back to her. Oliver's voice dropped. "You have already been dismissed, Miss Brooks. Choose your next words carefully." Amara's hands were red from detergent and heat. Fine cracks ran across her knuckles. Yet she didn't lower her gaze. "If it goes through normal hotel security," she said, "the same people who had access to that suite will have access to this sheet." Martin's expression hardened. "Are you accusing my staff? I am saying evidence should not be protected by the system that lost it for 3 years." The word evidence struck Oliver differently from the word sheet. Behind him, someone made a small sound. The service elevator was still open. Noah Grant stood inside it. Oliver turned, startled. "Noah, why are you here?" "I was looking for you," the boy said. His eyes weren't on his father. They were
What
on
is
the
that?
sheet. Oliver moved at
touched
once,
it.
placing his
Tell me
body
exactly
between
what
Noah and the
happened,
room.
sweetie.
"Go back upstairs." But Noah didn't move. He lifted his chin slightly and sniffed the air. The change in him was immediate. His face drained of color. He pressed his sleeve over his nose. That smell, he whispered. Oliver crouched in front of
It's
him.
all right, son.
It is just
Come with me.
bleach. You know the
No.
laundry floor bothers you. Noah shook his head. Amara watched him carefully, not with pity, but as if the boy had just placed a missing piece on the table. What does it
It's
smell
okay.
like? She asked softly.
Don't touch
Oliver
him.
snapped his head toward her. Do not question my
He's
son.
just scared.
But Noah answered before his father could stop him. It smells like that night, he said. When Mom was gone, the room became so quiet that even the machines seemed farther away. Martin stepped in quickly. The child has been traumatized, Mr. Grant. He associates many things with that period. It isn't unusual. Amara didn't argue. She looked again at the brown-red dot by the hem. Was
I
there a
have the
laundry cart?
records.
She asked. Oliver stood. That is enough.
I'm taking
Noah's
them
eyes
now.
flickered. It was tiny,
I know
almost
you.
nothing. But Amara saw it. Oliver saw that she saw it, and something hot and defensive rose in him. You don't get to come into my hotel, frighten my son, and dress coincidence up as a murder investigation. I didn't come into your hotel, Amara said. I have worked underneath it for 11 months. You only came down today. The words hit harder than she
You need to
intended.
listen to this.
Oliver looked around at the employees,
affects
frozen
everything.
beside laundry bins, carts, stacked towels, and open machines. If he let this continue, by lunchtime every floor would know. By tomorrow, newspapers might know. He pointed toward the side corridor. The sheet goes to the security room. Now, it will be sealed there until I call my legal team. Amara's fingers tightened. Mr. Grant, not another word. Martin stepped forward with gloved hands and took the sheet from her. He did it gently, almost respectfully, but Amara noticed the pressure of his thumb near the tag, too close to the cut plastic, too practiced. Oliver guided Noah back toward the elevator. Before the doors closed, the boy looked past his father at Amara. As the elevator rose, Martin carried the sheet down the side corridor toward security. The other employees slowly returned to motion. Amara stood alone beside the steel table. She had been fired. She had been dismissed. She had been warned. And the only piece of cloth that might still remember Evelyn Grant's last night was now in the hands of the man who had been most eager to wash it clean. The elevator lifted Oliver and Noah away from the laundry floor, but it didn't lift them out of the smell. Noah kept his sleeve pressed to his nose, even after the doors opened onto the private corridor behind the lobby. The hallway was quiet, carpeted, and scented with cedar wood. Framed photographs of the Grant Imperial lined the wall. Opening night, the first 5-star award, the visit from a royal family, the grand reopening of the presidential honeymoon suite after its renovation. Oliver stopped before that photograph without meaning to. Evelyn stood beside him in it, one hand resting on the polished brass rail of the suite balcony. She wore a pale blue dress and the half-smile she used when photographers asked for too much. Noah had been 5 then, hiding behind her legs, holding a toy train in one hand. "Dad," Noah whispered. Oliver looked down. The boy's eyes were still wet, but he wasn't crying. That frightened Oliver more than tears would have. "It was the same smell," Noah said. Oliver forced his voice to stay calm. "You were very little. I remember. You remember pieces." Noah looked toward the service doors behind them. Pieces can still be true. Oliver had no answer for that. For 3 years, the official story had remained almost polite. Evelyn Grant had left the hotel shortly after midnight. No body had been found. No ransom had been demanded. No verified sighting had ever survived more than a week of investigation. A suitcase was missing from her closet. Her passport had disappeared. A note had been found on her dressing table, written in words cold enough to make the police call it voluntary departure. "I can't breathe inside this life anymore." Oliver had read that sentence so many times that it had become a wound with handwriting. He had never fully believed it. But disbelief wasn't evidence. So he did what powerful men often did when grief couldn't be solved. He made everything around it efficient. The lobby flowers were replaced before they wilted. Staff uniforms were pressed to identical lines. VIP complaints were answered before they became public. The hotel didn't tremble. The hotel didn't ask questions. The hotel didn't wake a child in the middle of the night to ask what he smelled when his mother vanished. Behind him, Noah spoke again. "Is she in trouble because of me?" "Who?" "The woman downstairs." Oliver's face tightened. "Miss Brooks is in trouble because she refused procedure." Noah stared at him with a child's unbearable directness. "Mom used to say procedure is what people hide behind when they are scared." For a moment, Oliver heard Evelyn so clearly that the hallway seemed to tilt. Then his phone buzzed. Martin, Oliver answered. The sheet is in security room B, Martin said. I have placed it in a sealed linen bag. 2 guards are outside. No one will touch it without your authorization. Good. There is one more matter, Martin continued. Several employees heard Miss Brooks mention Mrs. Grant. I recommend we send a simple internal notice. Something about improper speculation and respect for the family. Oliver closed his eyes. It sounded reasonable. Martin always sounded reasonable. Not yet, Oliver said. A pause. Of course, sir. Oliver ended the call, but didn't move. Below the lobby, in a room without windows, Amara Brooks was no longer an employee. That meant she should have been escorted out. Instead, she stood beside a row of lockers while a supervisor watched her gather her things into a paper bag. She owned very little. A spare gray cardigan, a chipped mug, a packet of pain tablets, a small notebook with waterproof pages, 2 pairs of gloves with the fingertips worn thin. The supervisor, a nervous woman named Denise, kept glancing toward the security corridor. I am sorry, she muttered. I don't know what happened. Martin said the sheet was from a mislabeled storage batch. Amara folded the cardigan. Did it come in with the penthouse linens? Denise hesitated. That is what the intake sheet says. May I see it? You aren't supposed to access records now. I am not asking to take it. Just look. Denise shifted her weight. Loyalty, fear, and curiosity fought across her face. At last she opened the intake clipboard and set it on the folding table as if by accident. Amara read quickly. The sheet hadn't been logged as a sheet. It had been entered at 6:12 that morning as damaged banquet cloth. White, discard pending. The employee initials weren't clear. The room field had been left blank, then crossed through so hard, the paper nearly tore. Banquet cloth. Amara looked across the laundry floor. Banquet cloths went to a different wash cycle, one with stronger bleaching and no inspection for guest room trace evidence. If she hadn't stopped machine 6, the stain would have been swallowed by heat, detergent, and plausible deniability. Who brought it down? She asked. Denise shook her head. A cart was already waiting when morning shift came in. What cart number? I don't remember. Amara's gaze moved to the wall-mounted terminal beside the industrial washers. The machines tracked every cycle. Time, operator code, temperature, chemical setting. Hotels trusted machines because machines didn't gossip. She stepped closer. Denise whispered, Amara. But Amara had already touched the screen. Machine 6 showed a canceled cycle at 6:19 in the morning. That was hers. Before that, there was an attempted pre-soak entered under an override code at 5:48 in the morning. The chemical setting was wrong for banquet linen. Too much peroxide. Too short a soak. Someone had tried to make the stain look older before anyone saw it. Then Amara noticed something else. Machine 4 had no morning record at all. Its screen was active, its drum was warm, and its lint filter light blinked red, but the log jumped from 11:43 the previous night to 7:02 that morning. More than 7 hours were missing. Does Machine 4 still drop its history when it jams? Amara asked. Denise went pale. It has not jammed in months, but it used to. Denise looked toward the side corridor. You need to leave. Amara turned back to her locker. She slipped the waterproof notebook into her bag, but her eyes had settled on the far end of the room, where the old linen carts were parked in a row. Each cart had a small metal number plate near the lower wheel. Most were clean. One had a fresh replacement wheel, black rubber where the others had faded gray. Garde-fou. Before Amara could step toward it, Martin appeared at the corridor entrance. His suit looked untouched by the heat. His expression was almost kind. Miss Brooks, he said. Security is ready to escort you out. Amara picked up her paper bag. Martin's gaze dropped to it. All personal items only, I trust. She met his eyes. You can check. I would rather not embarrass you further. There it was. The soft blade. Polite enough that no one else could call it cruelty. He walked her through the service corridor himself. They passed stacked towels, stainless sinks, chemical drums, and the locked door marked Security B. 2 guards stood outside it. Behind that door was the sheet. Behind Martin's calm face was the key. At the loading exit, he held the door open. Morning light struck the concrete ramp. Amara stepped outside. For the first time in 11 months, she was no longer beneath the Grand Imperial. But as the door closed behind her, she wrote 3 things in her notebook. Banquet cloth. Machine four. Garde-four. Oliver didn't call Amara Brooks back because he trusted her. He called her back because the hotel had produced something he couldn't ignore. A sheet with a cut laundry tag, a stain no one wanted to name, and a room code that should have been locked away with the past. Less than 2 hours after security escorted her out, a black hotel car stopped near the loading entrance. Amara was sitting on the low concrete wall across the alley, her paper bag beside her, her small waterproof notebook open on her knee. The driver stepped out. "Mr. Grant would like to speak with you." Amara closed the notebook. "Where?" "His office." "No." The driver blinked. "If Mr. Grant wants to discuss that sheet," she said, "he can do it where the sheet is. Not upstairs. Not behind carpets and lawyers." 20 minutes later, Oliver stood inside security room B. The room was narrow, cold, and windowless. Monitors covered one wall. Locked cabinets lined the other. On the center table sat the sealed linen bag. Martin Hale stood beside it with his hands folded. Rebecca Sloan, Oliver's legal counsel, waited with a folder already open. Amara entered without her name tag. That small absence made her look even more like someone the building had already decided to erase. Oliver didn't offer her a seat. "You have one opportunity," he said. "Explain exactly what you believe you saw. After that, you will sign a confidentiality agreement stating that nothing discussed here leaves this room." Amara looked at the folder in Rebecca's hands. "A silence contract," she said. Rebecca corrected her. "A confidentiality agreement. A cleaner name doesn't change what it does." Oliver's face hardened. "This is my family and my hotel, and that sheet may be evidence. It is hotel property. It may also be the last thing your wife touched." No one moved. Martin stepped in smoothly. "Miss Brooks, you are making a very serious implication. You were employed in laundry. You aren't an investigator." Amara turned toward him. "Then let the cloth answer." Oliver stared at her for a long second. "What do you need?" Martin's eyes shifted. Amara answered without hesitation. "Clean gloves, distilled water, a handheld UV light, tweezers, 2 sterile swabs, a white tray, and a camera above the table." Rebecca looked up. "Why a camera?" "Because later, when someone says I contaminated the sheet, moved the tag, or touched the wrong area, the recording will speak before I have to." Oliver looked at Martin. "Get them." Martin gave a thin smile. "Sir, we can call an outside forensic vendor." "We will. After this." The items arrived within minutes. Amara put on the gloves with careful, practiced motions. The room changed as she worked. She didn't touch the linen like a fired employee trying to win an argument. She approached it like a witness. Rebecca started the overhead camera. Amara opened the sealed bag and eased the sheet onto the white tray. "Do not unfold it all the way," she said. Oliver frowned. "Why?" "Folds preserve sequence. If someone grabbed it, dragged it, hid it, or folded it in a hurry, the fabric can still hold pressure marks. If we spread it out just to make it convenient, we may destroy the order." She exposed only the stained corner. The mark looked almost too small to matter. A brown-red dot near the hem, no larger than a pinhead. Martin released a quiet breath. "That could be rust from a cart." "It could," Amara said. She placed a drop of distilled water beside the mark, not on top of it. Then she tilted the tray slightly. The drop moved along the weave, slowing where the fibers had stiffened. Rust usually sits differently unless it was pressed wet into the cotton. This entered the fiber. She turned on the UV light. The security room fell into a violet dimness. Around the tiny stain, a faint, uneven halo appeared. Rebecca leaned closer despite herself. Oliver's voice was lower now. "What is that?" "Chemical disturbance," Amara said. "Someone treated this before it reached the laundry floor. With bleach? Peroxide. Too strong for normal linen care. Too brief to remove the stain completely. It changed the edge, but not the center." Martin folded his arms. "Any laundry worker knows peroxide." Amara didn't look away from the sheet. "A laundry worker knows how to clean a stain. A forensic technician knows when cleaning failed." That sentence shifted the room. Amara lifted the hem with tweezers. "Look at the position. Not the center of the sheet. The edge. The grip line. The fibers are compressed in one direction." Oliver stepped closer. "Someone with blood on their hand could have grabbed this part," she continued. "Then the sheet was folded over the mark. That means the stain happened before the fold, not after." She moved to the laundry tag. "The cut is diagonal. Fast. Not fabric shears. More like a pocket blade or utility knife. Whoever did it didn't remove the whole tag because they were rushing. or because they believed half a code would be enough to confuse the record. She turned the plastic strip under the light. PHS, Presidential Honeymoon Suite. This was never a banquet cloth. Martin's voice sharpened. Codes can be reused. Amara finally looked at him. Not suite codes on banquet inventory. Silence settled again. Oliver turned to Martin. Bring me the intake record. Martin hesitated just long enough for Amara to notice. And the machine logs, Oliver added. Sir, I strongly advise we wait for certified outside personnel before allowing a terminated employee to direct an investigation. Amara removed her gloves. He doesn't need to let me direct anything. But if he lets this hotel direct itself, that sheet will become a clerical mistake by evening. Oliver looked at her differently now. Not with trust, not yet, but with attention. You seem very familiar with what happens to inconvenient evidence, he said. For the first time, Amara's expression closed. I am. Why? She placed the used gloves on the tray and stepped back from the sheet. Because before I learned how to keep my head down in a laundry room, she said, I worked in forensic evidence recovery. Rebecca's pen stopped above the paper. Oliver stared at her. Martin's face went still, but not with surprise. With calculation. Amara picked up her paper bag. And the last time I trusted powerful men to protect evidence, she said. A report was rewritten, a victim disappeared from the truth, and I lost the only career I was ever proud of. She turned toward the door. Oliver didn't stop her as an employer this time. He stopped her as a man who had just realized the woman he fired might be the only person in the building who knew how to read what Evelyn had left behind. Miss Brooks, he said. She turned back. Oliver kept his eyes on her, but spoke to Martin. I want the intake record and the machine logs on this table within the hour. Martin's polite mask held. Barely. The intake record arrived at noon. Martin placed it on the table himself, as if the delay had been ordinary and the hesitation had belonged to someone else. Behind him, a junior security officer carried a printed stack of machine logs, elevator access records, and linen inventory sheets. Oliver watched every page land on the table without speaking. Amara didn't reach for them at once. She looked first at the order. People lied in sentences. Systems lied in sequence. The intake sheet said the linen had entered the laundry floor at 6:12 in the morning as damaged banquet cloth. The machine log showed an attempted pre-soak 6 minutes earlier. The security corridor camera listed no cart arrival between those times. The records didn't merely disagree. They contradicted each other in the quiet, careless way of paperwork adjusted by someone who had assumed no one beneath the hotel would know how to read it. Rebecca Sloan noticed the same gap, only after Amara pointed to the timestamps. How can a pre-soak begin before the item is officially received? Rebecca asked. Martin answered too quickly. Manual entry delay. It happens during busy shifts. Amara looked at the clean line of his tie. Then the operator code should belong to someone on shift. Rebecca checked the page. The code didn't belong to the morning crew. It belonged to a maintenance supervisor who had retired 2 years earlier. For the first time that day, Oliver turned fully toward Martin. Martin's expression held. Old codes remain in the system. That is a failure of housekeeping administration, not proof of a crime. No, Amara said. It isn't proof. It is a door. Oliver looked at her. And where does it open? She didn't answer immediately. Because every door like this opened backward first. Years earlier, before the hotel basement, before detergent cracked her hands, before people learned to speak over her because she wore a gray uniform, Amara Brooks had worked in a forensic evidence recovery unit 2 miles from the Grand Imperial. She hadn't carried a badge. She hadn't chased suspects. Her world was quieter. Sealed bags, numbered shelves, stained collars, torn sleeves, fibers caught in cracked fingernails, and the terrible patience of things people tried to clean. She had been good at it because she trusted material more than testimony. A witness could forget. A rich man could hire counsel. A frightened employee could change a statement by morning. But cotton held pressure. Wool held odor. Blood traveled through weave-in patterns that didn't care about status. Her last case had started with a navy coat from a private hotel suite. The official question was simple. Had there been blood on it? Amara had found trace reaction near the cuff, diluted but present. Not enough for a courtroom speech, perhaps, but enough to require further testing. She wrote that in her preliminary notes. By the time the final report came back, the sentence was gone. In its place was a clean conclusion. No biological trace of evidentiary value detected. Her supervisor told her not to be dramatic. The family involved was powerful. The victim had already been described as unstable. The police needed closure. The hotel needed discretion. Amara needed to understand how the world worked. She refused to sign. Then her access card stopped working. 2 months later, she was no longer the technician who found the trace. She was the woman who mishandled evidence. A personnel file grew around her like mold. Emotional instability, procedural conflict, failure to cooperate. She learned how quickly truth became personality when powerful people needed it dismissed. Oliver listened without interrupting. He wanted to doubt her. Some part of him still searched for the convenient weakness in her story. A bitter former technician. A woman punished by one institution, now seeing corruption in another. It would be easier to place her there, behind glass, in a category that didn't demand anything from him. But Rebecca was already comparing pages. "Mr. Grant," she said carefully, "there is a phrase in your wife's original disappearance file that resembles what Miss Brooks just described." Oliver's mouth tightened. "What phrase?" Rebecca opened the scanned police summary on her tablet and turned it toward him. No biological trace of evidentiary value detected. The words sat there, neat and final. Oliver stared at them until they stopped being words and became a wall. "That was from the suite?" he asked. Rebecca nodded. "From the initial sweep. Bedding, robe, carpet, bathroom surfaces. The report says nothing meaningful was found." Amara's voice was quiet. "Who performed the evidence recovery?" Rebecca scrolled down. The name of the outside contractor appeared. Amara didn't recognize the lead examiner, but she recognized the laboratory subcontractor beneath it. Her old unit. A pressure began behind her ribs. Martin stepped closer. "This is exactly why speculation is dangerous. A common phrase in a forensic report doesn't connect two unrelated cases." "Maybe not," Amara said. She reached toward the old disappearance file, but stopped before touching it. The habit remained. Never touch a document without permission, when someone might later accuse you of contaminating the process. Oliver noticed. "Go ahead," he said. Amara turned the tablet slightly and read the report line by line. Evelyn Grant's dressing room had been searched. Her passport was missing. A suitcase was missing. A handwritten note was found. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No struggle. Too clean, Amara thought. Not peaceful. Clean. "There are no photographs of the laundry chute," she said. Oliver frowned. "The suite doesn't have a laundry chute." "No, but it has service access." Rebecca checked the floor plan. The presidential honeymoon suite shared a hidden service corridor with housekeeping storage, private catering access, and the staff elevator. Guests never saw it. Most owners forgot it existed because it was designed to make labor invisible. Evelyn would have known it existed. So would Martin. Oliver looked at the floor plan with growing discomfort. "My wife helped redesign that suite." Amara nodded. Then she knew the beautiful side and the service side. Noah appeared at the doorway before anyone could answer. This time he wasn't alone. Denise from laundry stood behind him, anxious and pale. "I am sorry," she said quickly. "He said he had to show his father something." Oliver's first instinct was anger. Then he saw what Noah held. A folded piece of drawing paper, worn soft at the edges. Noah walked to the table and set it down without looking at Martin. "I drew this after Mom went away," he said. "The doctor said it was just a bad dream." Oliver unfolded it. The drawing was uneven, made by a 5-year-old hand. A tall rectangle that might have been an elevator. A stick figure with yellow hair. A gray cart with white piles inside. One wheel was drawn much darker than the others. In the corner, in large crooked letters, Noah had written, "Number 4. Oliver's hand went still. Amara looked from the drawing to the machine logs on the table. Machine 4 had a missing record. Cart 4 had a replacement wheel. And now, from a child who had been told for 3 years that memory was unreliable, came the same number again. Martin gave a soft, almost sympathetic sigh. Children repeat details they hear from adults. We must be careful not to build a case on grief. Noah turned toward him. His voice was small, but steady. "I didn't hear it today," he said. "I heard the wheel that night." No one spoke. Amara looked at Oliver, and this time she didn't need to explain what the silence meant. The past hadn't returned as a memory. It had returned as a pattern. By early afternoon, the Grand Imperial had begun to split into 2 hotels. Upstairs, guests still moved through marble corridors with shopping bags, room keys, and complaints about champagne temperature. A pianist played in the lobby beneath a chandelier, imported from Venice. Bellman smiled. Elevators opened quietly. The hotel performed luxury, with the confidence of a place that had never been forced to look at its own basement. Downstairs, in Security Room B, the performance was cracking. Oliver had ordered every relevant record brought in: linen inventory, elevator access logs, maintenance reports, housekeeping schedules, chemical invoices, and the old floor plan of the presidential honeymoon suite. Martin had complied, but each delivery came through someone else's hands. A clerk, a junior guard, a nervous assistant. He remained present, but never too close to any one document. Amara noticed that first. "He is distancing himself from the paper," she said quietly. Oliver looked at her. "You can't accuse a man because he delegates." "No, but you can learn where a person refuses to leave fingerprints." Rebecca Sloan stood at the table, sorting the records into separate piles. "We start with access," she said. "If the suite was sealed, someone had to enter it." "It was sealed publicly," Amara said. "That doesn't mean it was sealed operationally." Oliver disliked the phrase because he understood it immediately. Luxury hotels had two maps. One for guests, where every passage seemed graceful and intentional. One for staff, where invisible routes carried food, linens, luggage, medicine, flowers, waste, and secrets. Evelyn had helped redesign the suite after their wedding. She had chosen the brass fixtures, the hidden lighting, the terrace doors, the cream wallpaper, but she had also insisted on widening the service corridor. Oliver remembered arguing about it. "No guest will see it," he had said. And Evelyn had answered, "Someone still has to move through it." At the time, he thought she was being kind to the staff. Now, standing over the floor plan, he wondered whether she had already been studying what other people ignored. Rebecca pointed to the access log. "The main guest elevator shows no entry after 11:42 at night, the night Mrs. Grant disappeared." Amara leaned closer. "What about the service elevator?" Rebecca turned a page. There it was. 12:18 after midnight, service elevator to penthouse service level. 12:31 after midnight, service elevator down to laundry corridor. 12:36 after midnight, service elevator to loading dock. The employee ID attached to the movements was listed as inactive. Oliver's eyes sharpened. "Inactive?" Rebecca checked the staff directory. The card belonged to a night maintenance worker who had resigned 6 months before Evelyn disappeared. Could the card still work? Martin answered from near the door. "Old cards occasionally remain active by administrative oversight." Amara looked at him. 3 separate swipes in 18 minutes isn't oversight. It is movement. Oliver didn't look away from the log. Who had authority to deactivate staff cards? Martin's expression remained composed. Security administration, operations, sometimes front office management, depending on the card type. "Operations," Oliver repeated. Martin gave a small nod. "Among others." The next record came from housekeeping storage. Evelyn's personal notebook had been kept in the family archive, not because anyone thought it mattered, but because Oliver had been unable to throw away her handwriting. Rebecca had retrieved a scanned copy from the old investigation file. It contained design notes, linen preferences, flower rotations, staff names, room numbers, and small marks in blue pen beside certain suites. Oliver touched the screen lightly. "She used blue ink when she was making changes," he said. "Decor, service flow, guest comfort." Amara studied the page. "These aren't design changes." "How do you know?" "Because the marks don't follow renovation dates. They follow occupancy." Rebecca pulled up the booking records for the marked rooms. Suite 1102, private guest, no public profile. Penthouse West, corporate hold. Presidential honeymoon suite, name withheld by management. The blue marks appeared only on nights when the guest identity had been hidden from the normal front desk system. Oliver's face darkened. "Why would guest names be withheld from my own front desk?" Martin stepped forward. "High-profile guests request discretion all the time. Politicians, actors, families in crisis. It isn't unusual." "No," Amara said. "Discretion leaves a record. This leaves a shadow." She pointed to the notebook. Evelyn had written 3 small letters beside one room. C.L. Oliver swallowed. "What is it?" Rebecca asked. "Catering lift," Oliver said. She hated that old lift. It rattled. Amara looked at Noah's drawing, still lying on the edge of the table. A cart. A dark wheel. Number 4. Could a linen cart fit through that service route? She asked. Martin answered before Oliver could. Barely. It would be impractical. But possible? Martin's jaw shifted. Possible isn't the same as true. Amara turned to the sheet. Not touching it this time, she used the enlarged photograph Rebecca had printed from the overhead camera. The stain sat near the hem, where fingers might close around cloth. She marked the fold direction with a pencil on transparent film over the image. If Evelyn was injured in the suite, she said, and someone used the sheet to wrap or silence the trace, the blood would be more random, but this is on the edge, compressed inward. She drew a line from the stain to the fold. This looks like someone grabbed the sheet while being pulled away. The hand closed on the hem. The sheet folded over the mark after pressure was applied. Oliver's voice was rough. You are saying she was conscious. I am saying the fabric suggests resistance. The word changed the room. Resistance meant Evelyn hadn't walked out with a suitcase and a note. Resistance meant the story of abandonment had been built over a struggle. Oliver stepped back from the table as if the floor had moved beneath him. Rebecca, perhaps to save him from the moment, lifted another record. Chemical invoices. The week after Mrs. Grant disappeared, peroxide purchases increased by 400%. Martin said, deep cleaning after a traumatic guest incident. The hotel was under scrutiny. We cleaned everything. Everything, Amara repeated. Rebecca found the maintenance sheet next. Cart 4. Wheel assembly replaced. Axle jammed. Service corridor, impact damage. The date was 2 days after Evelyn disappeared. Noah had drawn one dark wheel. Amara looked at Oliver. Where is cart 4 now? Martin answered again. Old carts are rotated, repaired, discarded. After 3 years, it may no longer exist. Denise, who had remained near the doorway with Noah, spoke before fear could stop her. It exists. Everyone turned. She clasped her hands together. It is in the overflow linen room. We stopped using it because the new wheel never rolled right. It pulls left. Martin's eyes moved to her with quiet warning, but Oliver had already heard. Take us there, he said. The overflow linen room was behind 2 locked doors and a narrow hall that smelled of cardboard, cotton, and old steam. Rows of retired sheets, spare duvets, stained tablecloths, and broken carts stood under yellow industrial lights. Cart 4 was at the back. Its metal frame had been wiped clean many times, but the lower corner near the replaced wheel carried a brown scrape under the paint. Not fresh, not obvious. The kind of mark a cleaner would miss because it lived too low to the floor. Amara crouched but didn't touch it. Photograph it first, she said. Oliver looked down at her, then at the cart. For the first time since the morning began, he didn't argue. He took out his phone and photographed the mark himself. Martin watched from the doorway, and Amara understood then that the secret was no longer inside one sheet. It had spread through the hotel's hidden routes, its old carts, its false records, its silent staff, and the blue marks of a woman who had been investigating the place she was accused of escaping. Martin Hale didn't raise his voice. That was why people listened to him. By 3 o'clock, the Grant Imperial had entered a quieter kind of emergency. No alarm had sounded. No police cars waited outside. No guest had been told that a sealed family tragedy might have returned through the laundry system. Yet every department felt the pressure. Housekeeping supervisors whispered near linen closets. Security guards checked doors twice. Front desk clerks lowered their voices whenever Oliver Grant crossed the lobby. Martin moved through all of it, with the calm of a man restoring order. He began with language. Not accusations, not threats. Language. This morning's disruption, he told the senior staff in the service briefing room, began with a dismissed laundry employee refusing to follow procedure. He didn't say Amara's name at first. That made it worse. A dismissed laundry employee, not a former forensic technician, not the person who had noticed the cut tag, not the woman who had stopped a sheet from being destroyed. A dismissed laundry employee. The phrase traveled quickly because it was easy to repeat. By the time Amara returned from the overflow linen room, 2 housekeepers looked away from her. A bellman who had once shared coffee with her near the loading dock suddenly remembered something urgent on his phone. Even Denise, who had spoken up about cart 4, stood with her arms folded tightly, afraid of being seen too close. Amara recognized the pattern. First, they made you smaller. Then they made anyone who listened to you feel foolish. Martin's first strike wasn't against the evidence. It was against her place in the room. In security room B, Oliver stood at the table while Rebecca organized the new photographs of Cart 4. The brown scrape near the lower frame was still on her screen. Martin entered with a slim file under one arm. "Mr. Grant," he said, "before this situation moves any further, I believe you need context." Oliver looked up. "What context?" "The context of Miss Brooks's employment history." Amara, standing near the wall, didn't move. Rebecca's eyes sharpened. "Is this a personnel matter?" "It is a credibility matter," Martin said. He placed the file on the table. Amara knew what it was before he opened it. Old paper had a smell even before anyone read it. Not ink or dust. Consequence. Martin slid the first page toward Oliver. Miss Brooks wasn't simply a forensic technician who chose to leave her profession. She was the subject of an internal review. Oliver didn't touch the paper at once. Martin continued, voice mild. Improper handling of evidence. Procedural conflict. Refusal to cooperate with supervisors. Concerns about emotional stability under pressure. Each phrase had once been written by someone who never had to look Amara in the eye. Now Martin read them, as if they were facts carved in stone. Rebecca took the page and scanned it. "This file doesn't include the underlying evidence. It includes the conclusion," Martin said. "A conclusion isn't the same as evidence." "No," Martin replied. "But when a woman with this history removes material from a sheet, refuses hotel procedure, and directs suspicion towards senior staff, we would be negligent not to consider motive." Oliver's gaze shifted to Amara. There it was. Not disbelief. Worse. Uncertainty. Amara had seen that look before. It was the moment when a powerful person began calculating whether truth was worth the risk of trusting a damaged messenger. Martin turned the page. There is more. After her dismissal from the lab, Miss Brooks applied for evidence, handling positions twice. Both applications were rejected. She then moved through temporary cleaning, hospital laundry, and finally hotel laundry. He paused just long enough. One could interpret this as a woman desperate to return to a world that no longer accepted her. Amara gave a short, dry laugh. Martin looked almost wounded by it. "You find that amusing?" "No, familiar." Oliver's voice was careful. "Amara." She looked at him. The use of her first name should have softened the room. It did not. "Did you take a fiber sample from the sheet before it was sealed?" he asked. Rebecca looked up quickly. Martin remained still. Amara answered plainly. "Yes." Oliver's face tightened. "You didn't tell me that." "No." "Why?" "Because at that moment, I didn't trust your security room." Martin stepped in. "She admits it." Amara didn't defend herself quickly. That too was familiar. Guilty people rushed. Innocent people often paused because the truth was more complicated than the accusation. "I took one loose fiber from the torn hem," she said. "I placed it in clean paper. I marked the time. I didn't touch the stain." "And where is it now?" Rebecca asked. "In my notebook." Martin's voice cooled. "So a fired employee is carrying hotel property and possible evidence in a personal notebook. Possible evidence survives only when someone is afraid it won't survive the official route," Amara said. Oliver's jaw worked. He wanted her answer to be wrong. He wanted Martin's concern to be paranoia, Amara's caution to be unnecessary, the entire day to be a terrible misunderstanding. But Amara had hidden a sample, and Martin knew exactly when to reveal it. That was the second strike. Not just her past, her judgment. Martin let the silence grow before speaking again. "Mr. Grant, I recommend we suspend all informal review. Secure Miss Brooks's notebook. Restrict her access to staff areas. Bring in outside counsel, and proceed through controlled channels." "Controlled by whom?" Amara asked. Martin turned to her. "By people whose records aren't compromised." For the first time that day, Oliver didn't stop him. The room understood. Amara did too. She picked up her paper bag. Rebecca said quietly, "Miss Brooks, wait." But Amara shook her head. "No. This is the part where everyone decides whether my file matters more than what is on your table." She opened the notebook, removed a folded piece of clean paper, and placed it beside Rebecca. "The fiber sample," she said. "Time marked, location marked. You can seal it properly." Oliver looked at the paper, then at her. "Do not leave the property," he said. It wasn't a request. It wasn't trust either. "I no longer work here," Amara said. "Then stay as a consultant until this is verified." Martin's mouth tightened, almost imperceptibly. Amara noticed. So did Rebecca. Oliver noticed last, but he noticed. Before anyone could speak, a soft knock came from the side door. Caleb, the young linen room employee, stood half hidden behind the frame. His face was pale. Martin turned. "This is a restricted room." Caleb swallowed. "I know. I need to speak to Miss Brooks." "Absolutely not." Oliver looked at Caleb. "Say it here." The young man's eyes moved from Martin to Amara, then back to the floor. "They are clearing the old linen storage tonight," he said. Rebecca frowned. "Who ordered that?" Caleb's voice dropped. "Operations." Martin's expression didn't change. "Routine disposal of obsolete inventory. We discussed this months ago." Caleb shook his head. "No. The tags were changed this afternoon. The carts, too. Anything marked before the renovation is being pulled." Amara felt the room narrow. Before the renovation. Before Evelyn disappeared. Before the official story hardened. Oliver turned slowly toward Martin. "You ordered disposal today?" Martin met his eyes. "I ordered housekeeping to proceed with an overdue task before speculation contaminated half the hotel." Amara stepped toward Caleb. "What else?" Caleb looked as if the words hurt coming out. "There is one more thing," he whispered. 3 years ago, I found part of a tag in the drain, under the old press. I kept it because I thought I would get blamed. I didn't know what it was." Martin's calm finally cracked. Only for a second. But Amara saw it. Caleb reached into his uniform pocket. Martin said his name sharply. "Caleb Froze." Oliver's voice cut across the room. "Give it to her." The young man placed a tiny piece of heat-scarred plastic in Amara's palm, half a laundry tag. Oliver had spent his adult life believing control was a form of protection. Control the entrances, control the guest list, control the staff routes, control the press statement before anyone asked the wrong question, control the grief, if nothing else. But by late afternoon, control had become the very thing that frightened Amara Brooks. The half-burned laundry tag lay inside a small evidence sleeve on Rebecca Sloane's desk. It had been photographed, sealed, and marked. Caleb had been sent to a staff room under the protection of hotel security, though he looked less protected than trapped. Martin had left the room only after Oliver ordered him to suspend the linen disposal, and even then he left with the air of a man obeying a temporary inconvenience. For several minutes, no one spoke. Then Oliver said, "This stops here for tonight." Amara looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means no more staff interviews, no more movement through service areas, no more involving Noah. Rebecca will contact an outside forensic team and a private investigator. Everything goes through counsel." "That sounds clean." "It sounds responsible. It sounds controlled." Oliver turned toward her. His exhaustion showed now, not as weakness, but as sharpness. "My son heard enough today." "Yes," Amara said. "He did. And you think he should hear more?" "I think he has already been carrying more than everyone around him wanted to admit." Oliver's voice lowered. "Do not speak about my son as if you understand him better than I do." Amara didn't soften. "Then stop treating his memory like something dangerous." The words struck him hard. Rebecca's eyes moved from one to the other, but she didn't interrupt. Oliver stepped closer to the table. "You think this is simple because you are looking at evidence. I am looking at a child who wakes up at night asking why his mother left him." "No," Amara said. "You are looking at a child who may have known she did not." Silence snapped into the room. Oliver's hand closed around the back of a chair. "Careful. That is exactly what I am being." "No, you are being reckless. You want to tear open a sealed case, accuse senior staff, involve employees who are terrified, and put my son's worst memories in the middle of it. And you want to put everything back into a private channel, where the hotel can decide what the truth is allowed to cost. My hotel isn't your enemy. It wasn't Evelyn's enemy either, until someone used its silence against her." Oliver flinched before he could hide it. Amara saw the pain, but she didn't step away from the truth. That was the cruel thing about truth. It didn't become kinder because someone was wounded. Rebecca closed the folder in front of her. "Mr. Grant, there is a practical concern. If this becomes public too early, Martin can argue contamination, personal bias, employee panic." "Exactly," Oliver said. Amara turned to Rebecca. "And if it stays private too long, Martin can finish what he started." Oliver looked at the sealed tag. "I am not letting Martin touch the evidence. Evidence isn't only what is in that sleeve. It is in the carts, in old logs, in staff who are scared, in people who will change their story by morning if they think the powerful man in charge wants quiet. Oliver's expression hardened again. You assume I want quiet because I am guilty of protecting him. No, Amara said. I assume you want quiet because quiet has been the only way you survived losing her. That landed differently. For a second, Oliver wasn't the owner of the Grant Imperial. He was a widower standing in a room that smelled faintly of paper, dust, and old chemicals, hearing a fired laundrywoman name the thing no one in his world had dared to name. Then the door opened. Noah stood outside. His eyes moved from his father to Amara, then to the evidence sleeve on the desk. Oliver straightened. Noah, I told Denise to take you upstairs. She did, Noah said. I came back. Noah, I heard you say stop. Oliver closed his eyes briefly. This isn't for you. The boy's face tightened. It is about Mom. Amara looked down, giving the father room to answer. Oliver didn't know how. Noah stepped inside. In one hand, he held the old drawing. The paper had been folded and unfolded so many times that the crease was beginning to tear through the elevator shape. I remembered something else, he said. Oliver's voice softened despite himself. What? The wheel sound. Amara became very still. Noah looked embarrassed now, as if memory were a mistake he had made in public. It went wrong. Like, thump, scrape, thump, scrape. I was hiding by the little door near the kitchen because Mom told me to stay there. I saw the cart go past. I couldn't see her face, just the white sheets. Oliver went pale. You never told me that. Noah looked at him. Every time I said something, people said it was a bad dream. The room had no answer for that. The boy looked at Amara. You asked if there was a laundry cart. Yes, she said gently. There was, and someone said, not that one. Number 4 pulls left. Amara's eyes lifted to Oliver. Carte four. The replaced wheel. The dark wheel in the drawing. Oliver turned away, as if the air had left him. Noah's voice shook, but he continued. Dad, if you stop now, does that mean Mom really did leave? Oliver turned back. All his money, all his rooms, all the polished statements and private investigators and carefully managed grief. And he still had no answer that could protect his son from that question. Amara spoke quietly. That is the cost of silence, Mr. Grant. It doesn't keep children safe. It makes them responsible for guessing. Oliver looked at her with anger, pain, and something close to shame. You make it sound easy. No, I make it sound necessary. He looked at Noah again. The boy was waiting, not for comfort, but for courage. Oliver took the drawing from his son and smoothed it on the desk beside the sealed laundry tag. Then he reached for his phone. Rebecca watched him carefully. What are you doing? Oliver didn't look away from the drawing. Calling the city police liaison. Then an independent forensic team. Then the board. Amara studied him. And Martin? Oliver's voice changed. Not louder, colder. Martin is no longer in charge of anything connected to this investigation. Noah exhaled, as if he had been holding his breath for 3 years. But Amara didn't relax. Because removing Martin from the room wasn't the same as removing his reach from the hotel. And somewhere inside the Grant Imperial, old linen was still waiting to be destroyed. Martin Hale no longer needed to touch the sheet. He only needed to touch the story around it. By 5 o'clock, Oliver Grant's private office had become colder than Security Room B. Rebecca Sloan stood beside the desk with a new packet from outside Risk Council. It contained 3 printed images. The first showed Amara near the sheet before it was sealed. The second showed her slipping something into her notebook. The third showed Caleb speaking to her near the linen room door. None of the images were false. That was the problem. Oliver stared at them for a long moment. Where did these come from? Rebecca's voice was careful. Internal camera review. Martin submitted them with a written concern. Amara stood across from the desk, her paper bag still in one hand. She had been called back in without explanation. Now she understood. Oliver placed the images in front of her. Tell me what I am looking at. You already know, she said. I want to hear it from you. Amara looked at the second photograph. It caught her at the worst possible angle, one hand near the torn hem of the sheet, the other moving toward her notebook. I took one loose fiber before the sheet went into hotel security, she said. I marked the time, folded it in clean paper, and gave it to Rebecca. You took it without authorization. Yes. Oliver's jaw tightened. You understand what that allows them to say. That I interfered with evidence. Rebecca lowered her eyes. That is exactly what Risk Council is saying. Martin had chosen his weapon well. He hadn't denied the stain. He hadn't denied the tag. He hadn't denied Cart 4. He had made Amara the contamination. Oliver walked to the window. Below, the city moved in clean lines. Black cars, glass towers, guests arriving beneath the hotel canopy, as if nothing inside had changed. "The board wants you removed from all access," he said. "No staff areas, no records, no contact with witnesses until outside investigators arrive." "Witnesses," Amara repeated. "You mean Caleb?" Rebecca looked at the packet again. "Caleb is under internal review for removal of archival property." Amara laughed once without humor. "He kept half a tag because he was scared. Now Martin is making him look like a thief." Oliver turned back. "And you made it easier by taking that fiber." The words landed harder than he expected. For a second, Amara said nothing. Then she nodded slowly, as if something in him had confirmed what she had feared from the beginning. "There it is," she said. Oliver frowned. "What?" The moment the evidence becomes inconvenient, everyone starts studying the hands that carried it. Rebecca said gently, "Miss Brooks, this is a chain of custody issue. No, it is a power issue wearing a legal coat." Oliver's voice sharpened. "You aren't helping yourself." "I know." That answer stopped him. Amara set her paper bag down and removed the small folded evidence paper from her notebook. Rebecca had already sealed the fiber, but Amara still placed the notebook on the desk as if surrendering the last thing she owned in the case. "You can take it," she said. "Search every page. There is no stolen linen, no hidden blood, no plan to extort anyone." No one reached for it, because the accusation had never really been about what was inside the notebook. It was about making everyone afraid to stand near her. A soft noise came from the hallway. Noah stood outside the office door. His face was pale, and his eyes were fixed on the photographs. Oliver moved quickly. "Noah, go upstairs." The boy didn't move. "Are they saying she lied?" "No," Oliver said. Amara looked at him. Oliver corrected himself, quieter. "They are saying procedure was broken." Noah's eyes filled. "That is what people say when they don't want to answer." Oliver closed his eyes for a brief second. Amara crouched slightly, not too close. "Noah, listen to your father tonight." The boy shook his head. "But you believed me." "I still do." "Then why are you leaving?" Oliver answered before she could. "She isn't leaving because she wants to." Amara stood. "No. I am leaving because Martin needs everyone to see me walk out." The room went silent. Oliver looked at her, anger and shame crossing his face together. He had first made her small on the laundry floor. Martin was only finishing the work in a more elegant way. Rebecca's phone vibrated. She read the message and stiffened. "What is it?" Oliver asked. "Martin has filed a sworn statement. He claims Miss Brooks showed fixation on Mrs. Grant's case, retained hotel property, influenced a minor child, and encouraged junior staff to remove archival evidence." Noah whispered, "That isn't true." "No," Amara said softly. "But it is useful." Oliver turned toward Rebecca. "Can we block it?" "We can challenge it," she said. "Not erase that it was filed." Amara picked up her paper bag. Oliver stepped toward her. "For tonight, you can't enter staff areas. You can't speak to Noah about the case. And you can't contact Caleb until counsel clears it." Noah made a small broken sound. Amara nodded once. Not because it was fair, because she had expected it. At the door, she paused and looked back at Oliver. "When a man hides a fire," she said, "the smoke doesn't become the criminal." Then she walked out. A guard followed her through the service corridor, but not closely. Even he seemed ashamed. Outside, evening had cooled the loading alley. Delivery trucks idled under yellow lamps. The city kept moving, as if truth could wait until morning. Amara stood beneath the metal awning and opened her notebook with shaking hands. Only now did they shake. Not when she was fired. Not when Martin read her file. Not when Oliver doubted her. Now, because Noah had watched her leave, she forced herself to write 4 lines. Martin's statement. Caleb isolated. Staff afraid. Destroy before morning. Then, beneath them, she wrote the one thing Martin hadn't mentioned. Machine four. Because he could turn her into a problem. He could turn Caleb into a thief. He could turn caution into misconduct. But he didn't know every place an old machine could still keep what people failed to clean. At 9:42 that night, the Grant Imperial lost sight of its own basement. Every camera on the laundry level went black for 11 minutes. The official reason appeared in the system as scheduled firmware maintenance. It was neat, typed, and approved under an operations access code that should have been suspended hours earlier. By the time Rebecca saw the alert, the old linen storage had already been opened. Downstairs, 3 housekeeping carts were being loaded with retired sheets, damaged duvets, stained banquet cloths, and boxes of archived laundry tags. 2 men from an outside disposal company moved quickly under Martin Hale's direction. Their truck waited at the loading dock with its engine running. Martin didn't shout. He didn't rush. He signed each removal sheet with calm, elegant strokes. Obsolete inventory, he told the nervous night supervisor. A contamination risk now that unauthorized personnel have accessed storage. Unauthorized personnel. That meant Amara. By 10 o'clock, Oliver received the message from the board. The language was polished, but the meaning was simple. Contain the crisis, remove the former employee, settle any claim privately, and prevent reputational damage before the anniversary ceremony the next evening. Attached was a draft settlement offer for Amara Brooks. $200,000. Full release. Permanent confidentiality. No contact with hotel staff or the Grant family. Oliver read it once, then again. For one terrible minute, it looked almost merciful. Amara would have money. Noah would be kept away from more pain. The police liaison could be told the hotel would cooperate through counsel. Martin could be investigated quietly. The board would remain calm. The guests would never know that beneath their polished floors, a dead woman's last trace might be riding away in a disposal truck. Then Noah walked into the study holding his old drawing. He placed it on Oliver's desk. "If you pay her to go away," Noah said. "Is that what happened to Mom too?" Oliver looked at his son. The sentence was too small for the damage it caused. "Noah." The boy's voice shook. "Everyone keeps making people quiet." Oliver pushed the settlement papers aside. At that moment, Rebecca called. "Oliver," she said, breathless for the first time all day. "The basement cameras went down. Old linen storage is being cleared tonight." Oliver stood so fast his chair struck the wall. "Who authorized it?" Rebecca didn't answer. She didn't have to. Outside the hotel, Amara Brooks wasn't sleeping. She had been sitting in a 24-hour diner, 2 blocks from the loading entrance. Notebook open beside untouched coffee. She wasn't allowed into staff areas. She wasn't allowed to speak to Caleb. She wasn't allowed near Noah. But she was still allowed to think. Machine four. The words sat on the page, underlined twice. A sheet could be seized. A tag could be challenged. A witness could be frightened. A sample could be turned into misconduct. But machines had habits. Machine 4 had once jammed often enough for staff to joke about it. If a fabric passed through it during an undocumented cycle, something might have remained where cleaners never looked carefully unless the machine failed. The lint trap. Amara paid for the coffee and left. She didn't enter through the lobby. She went around the block, past the flower delivery bay, to the old catering ramp that hadn't been used since the renovation. The gate was chained, but not well. Hotels were meticulous where guests could see. In forgotten corners, they trusted rust. She slipped through sideways, scraping her shoulder on the metal. Inside, the service corridor was dim. Somewhere ahead, carts rolled. Men spoke in low voices. A disposal truck hissed at the loading dock. Amara moved toward the laundry floor. At the corner near chemical storage, a hand caught her sleeve. She turned sharply. "Caleb." He looked terrified. "They are taking everything," he whispered. "Cart 4 is already on the truck." "Where is machine 4? "Still inside. They were going to disconnect it tomorrow." "Can you get me 3 minutes?" His eyes widened. "If they catch me, they already made you a thief," Amara said. "Tonight you decide whether they also make you silent." That was unfair. She knew it as soon as she said it. But Caleb swallowed, nodded once, and ran toward the loading dock. 30 seconds later, a metal crash rang out. Someone shouted. A stack of empty towel bins spilled across the corridor. Amara moved. Machine 4 stood near the far wall, old and square-shouldered, its warning light blinking red like a tired eye. She dropped to her knees and pulled open the lint trap panel. It resisted. Of course it did. She wrapped her fingers around the edge and pulled harder. The panel opened with a dry, metallic cough. Inside was lint, gray, and packed tight with heat and years of neglect. She had no gloves, no sterile tray, no overhead camera, nothing that would make Rebecca happy. Only 3 minutes, and the knowledge that if she waited for permission, the machine would be empty by morning. She used the corner of a clean paper napkin from the diner, folding it around the first clump before touching it. Gray lint, blue thread, towel fiber, nothing. Voices came closer. "Miss Brooks." Martin's voice. Caleb hadn't bought 3 minutes. He had bought less than 2. Amara reached deeper into the trap. Her fingers found something caught behind the inner lip. A thin, twisted thread of high-count white cotton. Different from towel lint, finer than banquet cloth. It was stuck to a darker fragment, almost invisible against the metal. She pulled it free with the napkin. A fiber. Not large, not dramatic, but under the harsh laundry light, she saw the faintest brown mark along one edge. Martin appeared at the end of the row, with 2 guards behind him. For the first time, he didn't look polite. "Step away from the machine." Amara folded the napkin over the fiber and held it up. "You missed a place," she said. Martin's eyes went to her hand. That was when Oliver entered behind him. Noah wasn't with him. Rebecca was. Oliver's gaze moved from Martin to the open lint trap, then to Amara on the floor. Martin recovered quickly. "She broke restriction. She has contaminated another area. This is exactly what I warned you about." "No," Rebecca said. Everyone turned. She held up her phone. On the screen was the live maintenance dashboard Oliver had ordered restored through an external administrator. The camera blackout, the disposal order, the access code, the override on machine 4. All of it time-stamped. All of it under operations. Oliver looked at Martin. "You told me this was routine." Martin said nothing. From the loading dock, Caleb shouted, "They have cart 4 on the truck." Amara stood slowly. "The cart can go," she said. But machine 4 kept what the cart carried. She placed the folded napkin into Rebecca's open evidence sleeve. This time, she didn't keep the sample herself. This time, the room watched it become official. And Martin Hale understood before anyone said it aloud that the basement he had controlled for 3 years had just betrayed him. The next evening, the Grant Imperial dressed itself in gold. Lights climbed the marble columns, white flowers lined the grand staircase. Reporters waited near the velvet ropes, and board members filled the front rows beneath the crystal chandelier. On every screen in the ballroom, the anniversary slogan glowed in elegant letters, "A legacy of trust." Martin Hale stood near the stage, calm again, as if the basement had never turned against him. At 7 o'clock, Oliver Grant stepped to the microphone. The applause rose, polished and expensive. Then he looked past the guests, past the investors, past the cameras, toward the service doors at the side of the room. "My wife, Evelyn Grant, disappeared from this hotel 3 years ago," he said. The applause died. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Martin's eyes narrowed. Oliver continued. "For 3 years, I allowed this building to protect a version of that night that was easier for the hotel than it was for the truth." Martin moved toward Rebecca Sloan. "Stop him," he whispered. "This is reckless." Rebecca didn't look at him. "No. This is public record now." Oliver turned to the side entrance. "Amara Brooks, please come forward." The room looked for a woman in a gown. Instead, Amara entered through the service door. She wore a plain dark dress. Her hair was tied back. No jewelry, no performance, no attempt to belong to the room that had never looked down at her floor. Behind her came Rebecca, Caleb, Denise, and 2 independent forensic technicians. Martin raised his voice just enough for the front row to hear. "Mr. Grant, you are letting a former laundry worker address investors and press." Oliver looked at him. "I am letting the first person who refused to wash away evidence speak." The words moved through the ballroom like a struck match. Rebecca changed the screen. The anniversary slogan disappeared. A photograph of the sheet appeared. Amara stood beside the display. Her voice was steady. "This linen was logged yesterday as damaged banquet cloth." It wasn't banquet cloth. The surviving laundry tag identifies it as belonging to the presidential honeymoon suite. The image changed. The sliced tag enlarged across the screen. The tag was cut with a small blade, not removed properly, cut quickly. Another image appeared. The tiny brown, red mark near the hem. The stain was treated with concentrated peroxide before it reached the laundry floor. Its position, near the grip line, suggests pressure from a hand before the sheet was folded. A reporter whispered, "Are you saying Evelyn Grant was alive when it happened?" Amara didn't turn. "I'm saying the sheet contradicts the report that claimed there was no meaningful biological trace." Rebecca stepped forward and brought up the service elevator log. On the night Mrs. Grant disappeared, an inactive maintenance card accessed the penthouse service level, then the laundry corridor, then the loading dock within 18 minutes. The next slide showed the cardholder, a former employee who had left months earlier. Oliver faced Martin. Operations had authority to deactivate that card. Martin replied smoothly. Several departments did. Rebecca changed the slide again. This time, the room saw the camera blackout from the night before, the disposal order for old linen storage, and the override code used on Machine 4. All under operations access. Martin's face tightened. Amara continued. Cart 4 was repaired 2 days after Evelyn Grant disappeared. The report said its wheel pulled left. The screen changed to Noah's drawing. A child's gray cart, one dark wheel. The crooked words, number 4. Noah stood near the back beside Denise, pale but watching. Amara's voice softened only slightly. Noah Grant drew this after his mother vanished. For 3 years, people called it a nightmare. The next image showed Machine 4's lint trap. One fiber survived there, a high-count cotton fiber consistent with the sweet linen batch. One of the independent technicians stepped to the microphone. The fiber has been sealed for full laboratory analysis. The residue on its edge is preserved. Martin gave a short, sharp laugh. So, this is your proof? He said. A child's drawing, lint from an old machine, and a fired employee's imagination. Amara looked at him. No, Evelyn's proof. Rebecca brought up Evelyn's housekeeping notebook. Blue marks circled several sweet numbers. Oliver's face changed when he saw it. For years, he had believed those marks were design notes. Amara pointed to the screen. These blue marks don't follow renovation dates. They follow anonymous VIP occupancy. Rebecca layered a chart over the notebook. The circled rooms became dates. The dates matched hidden catering lift usage. The catering lift logs matched private payment blocks. The payment blocks led to one shell company, Hale Meridian Services. The ballroom went silent. Oliver read the name once. Then he looked at Martin. Hale. Martin's face emptied. Amara said, Evelyn wasn't running from her family. She was tracing hidden payments through rooms kept outside the normal front desk record. The night she disappeared, she marked the presidential suite, the service route, and the catering lift. Rebecca nodded to the side of the stage. An older night guard stepped forward, hands shaking. Martin stared at him. The guard spoke into the microphone. Mr. Hale told me Mrs. Grant had a breakdown. He said Mr. Grant wanted it handled quietly. I erased the service corridor footage because I believed him. His voice cracked. I have carried that for 3 years. Phones lifted. Reporters began recording. Board members stood. Martin's polish finally broke. You have no idea what she was going to expose, he said. She would have destroyed this hotel. Oliver's grief turned cold. No, he said. She was trying to save it from you. Security moved in, but this time they didn't look at Amara. Oliver faced the room. Effective immediately, Martin Hale is removed from all duties. All records connected to Evelyn Grant's disappearance, hidden guest accounts, and operations access will be turned over to law enforcement. Then he stepped away from the microphone and turned to Amara. I fired you in front of your coworkers, he said. I doubted you when you protected evidence. I let this hotel make you look small because that was easier than admitting how blind I had been. Amara said nothing. Oliver lowered his head. I'm sorry. No one applauded. That made it real. At the back of the ballroom, Noah began to cry quietly. Not because the room had spoken of his mother. Because, for the first time in 3 years, it had stopped saying she left and started saying she fought. 3 days later, Oliver Grant did something no one in the hotel had ever seen him do. He held a staff meeting on the laundry floor. Not in the ballroom, not in the boardroom, not beneath the chandelier where important people like to be photographed. In the basement, the machines had been turned off for the first time in years, and the silence made the room feel larger. Housekeepers stood beside bellmen. Kitchen porters stood beside front desk clerks. Security guards stood near the wall, no longer guarding a secret they didn't understand. Amara Brooks stood near the steel table where she had first held the sheet. Oliver faced her in front of everyone. I fired you here, he said. So I will apologize here. No one moved. I called you an employee who refused procedure. I didn't ask why you were refusing. I trusted the height of my office more than the truth under my own feet. Amara's face remained still, but her eyes changed. Oliver turned to the staff. From today forward, no employee in this hotel will be punished for preserving evidence, reporting misconduct, or refusing an order that hides harm. That policy will carry Evelyn Grant's name. Then he placed a folder on the steel table. Inside was Amara's formal clearance, a public correction of her termination, and a signed request asking the city evidence board to review the forensic report that had destroyed her career years before. "I can't give back what was taken from you," Oliver said, "but I can stop pretending it was never taken." Amara touched the folder once. That was all. It was enough. A week later, Noah stood in a quiet room that had once been used to store old guest ledgers. Oliver had turned it into a private memorial for Evelyn. There were no grand portraits, no marble plaque, no dramatic flowers. Only 3 things rested inside a glass case: a page from Evelyn's blue-marked notebook, the repaired laundry tag, and a sealed photograph of the sheet. The original linen remained with law enforcement, but Oliver had asked for the evidence photograph to be placed where Noah could see it without fear. Noah stared at the tag for a long time. Then he whispered, "She didn't leave me." Oliver knelt beside him. His voice broke before the words came. "No. She fought to come back to you." Noah pressed one hand to the glass. He didn't cry loudly. He only breathed, as if a door inside him had finally opened. Amara stood near the doorway, giving them space. After a moment, Noah looked back at her. "Machines don't lie," he said. Amara smiled faintly. "No, but sometimes they wait for someone to listen." Months later, the Grand Imperial still looked beautiful from the street. Guests still saw polished brass, fresh flowers, white linen, and marble floors. But underneath the beauty, something had changed. The Evelyn Grant Foundation began training hotel workers across the city to recognize unsafe orders, preserve records, and report hidden abuse without losing their jobs. Caleb became the first staff witness protected under the new policy. Denise led the laundry team, and every new employee was shown not only the guest map, but the service map too. Amara didn't return as a laundry worker. She returned as an independent evidence consultant, walking into hotels, hospitals, shelters, and courtrooms with the same quiet eyes that had once read a stain no larger than a pinhead. On the first anniversary of the truth coming out, Oliver stepped into the laundry floor again. This time, no guest was waiting upstairs. No one was being fired. He carried coffee for the night team and stood for a moment beside Machine 4, now cleaned, repaired, and kept as a training machine instead of scrap. The drum turned slowly behind its round glass door. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Oliver listened to it, then looked at the people working beneath the marble. For the first time, he understood that the hotel had never been held up by chandeliers, suites, or names on brass signs. It had been held up by the people no one was supposed to notice. And one of them had heard the truth when everyone above her had mistaken silence for clean linen.